everyone. Welcome so much. Welcome back. We are so excited to have you with us today. We have a wonderful speaker, Victoria LeBlanc, who I'm excited to introduce in just one second. I hope that you guys had a great time networking with everyone that we have in the conference. We currently have over 230 people attending right now, so I hope that you were able to mingle and connect with like-minded individuals. I wanted to give a shout out to Postpartum Support International. They, let me bring up the, one second. There we are. We have been partnering with them for a couple of years now, and I really love the organization and what they stand for. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. You can go to postpartum.net. So please check that out. And I'm going to go back to, one second. While I'm doing this, I would love to hear where you guys are from, and just give a shout out in the chat. One second. Here we go. All right, I'm going to add Victoria. Hello, Victoria. Welcome.
Hi. So happy to be here.
Yes, we're thrilled to have you. We've had Victoria on a few of our other podcasts, and she is, not podcasts, webinars, and she was also at our conference last year, if you're able to catch her. So she has new material to present, and we're so thrilled. Let me just give you a little bio about her. She has been working with children and families for over a decade. She is a licensed clinical professional counselor specializing in attachment, trauma, at-risk youth, and family therapy. Through her business, Attached Parenting LLC, she offers parenting classes, parenting coaching, webinars, and baby-wearing consultations. She is a certified Attached at the Heart parenting educator and is the parenting educator support coordinator for Attached Parenting International. Victoria speaks at conferences and other events on the variety of topics related to trauma, adversity, resilience, child development, and parenting. Her presentation will address parenting attunement to the development of social competencies and emotional regulations. This will be discussed through the involvement of Eric Institute's first stage of development. So please join us as we welcome her.
Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you very much for that introduction, Ashley. I hope everybody is having a wonderful start to the conference. I know that we have some really great presentations that I'm excited to check out myself. And I'm really glad that you all are here joining me today to talk about parental attunement and how that's going to set the foundation for emotional health. Like Ashley said, my name is Victoria LeBlanc, and I run Attached Parenting. And I love talking about these topics. I spent a long time in the treatment of mental health disorders and found that I was working a lot on attachment relationships and really building parenting skills. And so I love having opportunities to present at conferences and do trainings on things like this, so that way we can work on the preventative side of all of that. So the first thing that I would like to do is talk about what do we mean when we are saying that we are wanting emotional health? What is that? So for an adult, emotional health refers to how a person is able to manage their thoughts, feelings, and emotions in response to life's ups and downs. It means that we are aware of our emotions, that we have the ability to cope with both positive and negative emotions in a healthy way. We generally feel good about ourselves, and we also know when to reach out for help. And that's an important aspect that I want to highlight, is that ability to be able to recognize that this is too much for me and I need some outside assistance. Now, when we're looking at children, an emotionally healthy child is going to be learning how to manage their emotions and gain emotional balance in their life. They're able to maintain positive relationships. They're gaining awareness of what their emotions are. So they're building that emotional literacy. They're learning how to cope with both positive and negative emotions in a healthy way. In general, they're pretty confident in themselves. They're also comfortable in general reaching out for help or accepting help that is offered to them. And they feel loved, safe, and secure in their environment. Something that's really important for us to note with the emotional health of a child is that these things are mostly dependent on relation to or connection with another person. Now, humans in general are social creatures. Connection is a need that we have as human beings. We are born with a need to connect, and that need stays with us until we pass on. We know that touch is the first sense that we develop in utero, and it's also the last sense to leave us before we pass away. Now, touch is just one way that we get our need for connection met. We also have a psychological need to connect with others as well. When you study mammals in general, you find that from the smallest rodent to the largest of mammals, there is a need for social connection. Mammals are significantly impacted by their social environment. And when these social bonds are threatened or severed, it can lead to both physical and mental health challenges. In fact, connection is so important that it comes next after our basic needs of physiological and safety needs. So what you see pictured here is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, Abraham Maslow was a psychologist who developed this hierarchy of needs. And basically what he's saying is that within this pyramid is all of the needs that we have as human beings. So at the bottom of the pyramid, you see that we have our basic needs. These include our physiological needs, like the need to be able to breathe air, have water, have food, have shelter, get sleep, have clothing on our backs, those types of things. Then the next basic need that we have is a need for safety. So those are going to be things like our own personal security, but also employment, resources, health, property, all of those things. Then the next thing that Maslow talks about are our psychological needs. So we have a need for love and belonging, which includes our need for connection that I was just talking about. We as human beings have a need to be connected, whether that is through friendship or family or intimacy. We have that need to connect with other individuals. And then he talks about our esteem needs. And so we are talking about our self-esteem, our strength, our self-respect, our status in society, that we have this need to have this positive esteem about ourselves. And then the last need at the top of the pyramid is our self-fulfillment need, and that's called self-actualization. And this is something that as human beings, we're constantly striving for. And Maslow proposed that actually very few people actually become self-actualized, that this is a continuous process that we are in throughout our lifetime, and that very rarely do people actually become self-actualized, which is that desire to become the most that one can be. So it's seeing that end goal and being able to attain it. And the thing about human beings is that oftentimes when we attain a goal, we develop another goal. And so we're constantly growing and changing. And so self-actualization is more of a process than an end goal, so to say. At the bottom of this pyramid, we have those physiological needs and those safety needs. And basically what Maslow was discussing is how, if met, then we're going to really struggle with our psychological needs and our self-fulfillment need. Because if you're worried about being able to get food or water, or where are you going to sleep tonight, or if you're worried about your personal safety, then your focus is on getting those needs met. And you don't really have the leftover reservoir to be able to focus on connecting with other people or working on your self-esteem. Now, one of the things that is really interesting that has come about in the field of neurobiology is that attention is being brought to the fact that social connectedness, this love and belonging, is actually very similar to our basic needs, because we need to have that sense of connection as human beings to feel okay in the world. We have found through research in neurobiology that having connection is really important, and that when we are missing that connection, that it actually can cause us physical pain. When they look at regions of the brain through MRI imaging, research has found that the same region of the brain is active when we have a physical pain, such as breaking a bone, as is when we are socially rejected. So that really speaks to how influential that sense of connection is for us. It is such a strong need that we literally cannot survive without it. Our ability to survive as an infant is 100% dependent on our connection to another person, right? Our parent or our caregiver. When we are an infant and we have a need, we cry out for connection. And it's only because we have that connection to another person that we are able to get our needs met, right? So as an infant, we come into this world and we can't do anything for ourselves. We can't feed ourselves. We can't change our diapers. We can't talk or communicate outside of nonverbal cues and crying. So we really are 100% dependent on our parent or caregiver to get all of our needs met. If we don't have that connection to our parent or caregiver, then our needs go unmet, and we go into a state called failure to thrive, and infants can pass away from that. We know as a parent that our infants' cries, that connection to them, actually does cause us physical pain. So if you've ever been a parent, you've had firsthand experience with this, right? So your infant cries and you can feel it in your body. Some people describe it as like this feeling of wanting to throw up, or some people will say that like it hurts them. And we get this instinctual drive to go to that child and help them get their needs met, to comfort that baby. And that's just a really great example of how that physical pain can come from that connection need. Now, babies don't just cry out because they have a physical need like hunger or thirst, or they need their diaper changed, right? They also cry out when they are separated from their caregivers. Why? Because separation causes physical pain in an infant. They need to have close proximity to their parent or caregiver. Attachment Parenting International talks about this in their Attached at the Heart parenting program. They talk about how proximity is one of the 4 P's of innate needs that we are born with. Proximity to their parent or caregiver, that connection to them ensures that all these needs down here on the bottom of the pyramid get met. Now, we know that connection matters, that it's actually vital for the infant's survival. But we also need to note that the type of connection matters as well. So there are 2 categories of connection or attachment relationships: secure and insecure. Now, within that insecure category, there are a few types of insecure attachment relationships that I'm not really going to have time to dive into today. However, what is important for you to know is that at the heart of all of these ways of relating to other people, whether it be through secure attachment or insecure attachment, is a desire to get those basic needs met. So if we have a secure attachment relationship with our parent or caregiver, what that means is that I feel safe, I feel secure, I feel stable, and I have trust in this relationship. I know that I'm going to be nurtured and that my needs are going to be met in a supportive and healthy way. If, on the other hand, I have an insecure attachment style, that means that I'm not able to rely on my parent or caregiver to meet my needs consistently or in a nurturing and trustworthy manner. It means that if I have an insecure attachment style, that I'm developing the best strategies that I can in order to get my needs met. And I think that's a really important thing to highlight, is that insecure attachment is strategies that the child uses to try and get their needs met. So that might look like clinging to a caregiver and whining about everything. So that way I can ensure that my parent or caregiver hears me and sees me and knows that I have a need that needs to get met. Or on the other hand, it might look like shutting down emotionally and keeping people at a distance, because when I voice my needs, that pushes my parents' buttons and makes them disconnect from me. And that makes them less likely to attend to my needs. So I learned this strategy of shutting down and not being very vocal as a way to get my needs met, because my parents are more likely to engage with me when I'm not engaging in a lot of behaviors. Now, whatever attachment style I develop, whether it is secure or one of the 3 insecure attachment styles, it is going to have a major impact on both my social interactions and my mental health. Our social and emotional competence is shaped by the interactive experiences within the parent-child dyad. So we are laying the foundation for our children's brain development and mental health. We are going to be determining how we relate to others for the rest of our lives, because we use the attachment relationships with our parents or caregivers as the model for all of our future relationships. This is what we know. It's what we're familiar with. It's what we have learned is the way to communicate and interact with another person. So if I have a secure attachment with my parent, then I will take all that information into the world and generalize it and develop that type of a relationship with other people, like my grandparents or my neighbors or my friends or my teachers or my romantic partners, and even with my own children. In fact, the attachment style that you have with your parent is the biggest predictor of the attachment style that you're going to have with your own children. Why? Because the connection that we have with our parents or caregivers, that attachment relationship we develop, actually shapes the changes in the brain and the way that it functions. Those attachment relationships with our caregivers determine how our brain grows and develops and what neurological connections are made in the brain. The neurological framework that develops influences how we think about the world around us and how we react to things in our environment. Those interpersonal interactions that we have, particularly with our caregivers during the first 5 years of life, actually physically impacts the development of the growing brain. Those interpersonal experiences also create what is called an internal working model. Now, this internal working model is a cognitive framework that comprises our mental representations for understanding the world, ourself, and other people. The social and emotional responses that our caregivers provide gives us information about the world and about other people, as well as how we view ourselves as individuals. For example, the extent to which a person sees themselves worthy of love and care, or looks at how available and reliable other people are, is determined by that inner working model. A person's interactions with others is guided by the memories and the expectations that they have from that internal working model, which influences and helps evaluate our contact with other people. So the attachment relationship also is going to teach the child how to cope with life's trials and successes. For example, if a child has an insecure, avoidant attachment relationship, that child might learn to ignore their thoughts and feelings and not be very in touch with their inner emotional experience when they face a challenge or have a success. It's going to determine how they are going to cope with those trials and tribulations. Whereas a child who has a secure attachment relationship might be able to share their sadness or their joy with their parent or caregiver. And then that caregiver is going to be able to better guide them in how to use healthy coping skills for whatever situation that they are facing. So the attachment relationship that a child develops is going to be heavily influenced by parental attunement. Parental attunement is a core dimension defined as the parental ability to be responsive to a child's signals, to understand them, and to respond appropriately while also being able to adjust to the child's needs. So parental attunement calls on us to be insightful, for us to see things from our child's point of view. In fact, studies have found that insightful mothers were more sensitive in their interactions with their children, and that these mothers are also more likely to have children with secure attachments. Parental attunement represents a precursor for the development of the child's mind, their abilities in self-regulation, and their capacity to be engaged in relationships with others. So when parents start hearing about parental attunement, sometimes that makes them feel a little bit stressed or pressured that they need to do things just right. That we have to be this perfect parent because it's going to have such a huge impact on our child in so many different areas, which is true. Our interactions do have a huge impact on our children, but the reality is that our children don't need us to be perfect. And I think it's really important for us to reassure ourselves and other parents that no parent or caregiver is going to be in tune with their child 24/7. That's not possible. And so it's okay. Our child does not need perfection. What they do need is for them to be able to see that we are trying. It means that we're not striving for perfection in the relationship. It means that we are being truly present for them and we are giving it our best effort. Learning to be attuned to each individual child is a process of trial and error, and it takes time and effort. So you may be very well attuned to your child who is 5 years old because you've had 5 years of getting to know them and having that practice in getting attuned with them. Whereas your 3-month-old baby, you may not be as well attuned to because they've only been here for a couple of months, and it takes time and practice to learn each of these children's mannerisms, what their preferences are, the things that they need, how they express their needs. And so it's a process, and it's a process that's going to continue to evolve over time because the way that our child is as an infant is going to be different than the way that they are as a toddler, as they are as a elementary school child, as they are as a teenager. Yes, some things stay stagnant and stay the same. However, they also grow and mature as well. And as they grow and mature, that process needs to grow and mature with them. A child really only needs us to be attuned 30% of the time. And if we can be attuned to our children more often than that, then that's great. But I like to highlight that 30% of the time is really all that they need. They need to see that we are trying the rest of the time, but we don't have to be 100% attuned to them. Now, nonverbal cues are going to play a major role in early childhood development. Adults have to learn how to read and respond to their children's cues in order for children to feel supported and loved. Conversely, children learn from watching our cues like eye gaze and pointing. So I want to send you guys over to the chat for a minute, and I want you guys to think about what are some nonverbal cues that you notice from your infants or children? What are some of the nonverbal cues that they give you? So some of the earliest ones that we start to learn about are things like hunger cues, right? So we start to see that tongue thrusting. We see them looking around and searching for the nipple. We see them starting to eat their fists, right? Maybe when they are toddlers, we start seeing them hold up their arms because they want to be picked up, right? So some other ones that are coming through the comments are hair rubbing, sucking their thumb, eye contact or lack of eye contact, crying, pointing, the look that you get from an older child. Yep. Looking around rapidly, rooting. Exactly. How about when they're potty training and they start to do the potty dance, right? They're not saying anything, but you can tell, like, hey, do you have to go to the bathroom right now? Fingers play, shudder, looking around rapidly. Yeah. And then what are some of the nonverbal cues that you use with your children or within your family? What kind of nonverbal cues do you give to your children or to your family members? I know for me, I do a lot of arms out. I want a hug, right? Come give me a hug. I don't have to ask. I just can hold my arms out and everybody knows mom wants a hug. A wink, the look. Yes, definitely the look. Puckering up for a kiss. Come here, right? A pat on the back. Yeah. Maybe we move our finger to our mouth to tell them that we want them to be quiet. Smile, touch, hand signs. Great. Hugs. So many nonverbal cues are similar for children across many backgrounds and abilities and cultures. The other thing that we might notice is that our children might have their own cues or ways of showing their caregivers what they're feeling or what they're needing in the moment that might be unique to that child or that you may not see across the board with all children. So what are some nonverbal cues that you've learned from your own children? I know for me, my youngest one, she sucks her thumb when she is tired. And every single person in our family knows this cue that if the thumb goes in the mouth, that she's tired. And she will tell you all day that she's not tired, but if she's sucking on her thumb, she's tired. Yawning, humming, reaching for hands. Yeah. Some babies also will have their own unique poop face, right? That we see like, oh, mom knows or dad knows that when the baby's making that face, it probably means that they're going to the bathroom. So responsive caregiving and parental attunement lets you know each individual's child as a person. It helps you get to know their strengths and their challenges, and it allows you to customize your interactions with them accordingly. Studies on neural synchrony have found that parent and infant brains work in harmony with one another, that it's almost like a dance that they're doing. And our behavior may not always be the same, but they are complementary. Our brains are working together, and we can see how that plays out in our interactions together. So young children learn through social, responsive, back and forth interactions with other people. Harvard's Center for the Developing Child calls this serve and return interactions. And if you haven't heard that term, I highly suggest that you go over to the website that Harvard has and check out their serve and return interactions video. They will do a much better job explaining it through that video than I can in these few minutes that we have together. But we have those serve and return interactions where we are engaging in that back and forth dynamic with our child. What happens is that there's coordination between the parent and the infant, and it improves when that process is initiated by the child and the parent follows the lead or the direction of the child. So not only does this process improve parental attunement, but it also enhances the child's executive function and cognitive control skills. But what happens when our infants experience frequent misattunement? Because it's going to happen. Infants and children may stop expressing their needs. They may reject or shut down or disconnect from their needs. They may develop insecure attachment relationships with their caregivers. When we see a lot of misattunement, that is oftentimes when we start to see that insecure attachment start to crop up. And misattunement may interfere with brain development, their sense of safety, and social and emotional development. Essentially, what happens is that it leads to some mistrust in the relationship with the caregiver. So what I have here are the stages of psychosocial development developed by Erik Erikson. And I think that this is really important for us to know about as parents, because these are stages that we're all going to go through. Now, getting caught up in one of these stages doesn't mean that you're not going to progress through all of the rest of the stages. It just means that it's going to have an impact in what that looks like. So the first stage of psychosocial development that we have is called trust versus mistrust, which essentially means that when we are developing that first few months, weeks, years in the caregiving relationship, we, again, are 100% reliant upon our caregivers. And the interactions that they have with us are going to lead to us develop either in trust in the relationship or a sense of mistrust in that relationship. If I develop a sense of trust in the relationship, then when I am a toddler and I move on to the next stage of development, which is autonomy versus shame and doubt, that means that I'm probably going to have an easier time in developing that sense of autonomy. Whereas if I developed a sense of mistrust during that first stage of development, then in toddlerhood, when I'm looking at, am I an autonomous being? Am I able to rely on my caregivers to keep me safe as I start to progress out into the world? Am I able to keep myself safe as I go out into the world? It's going to have an impact because toddlers are trying to explore the world, right? And that's where that sense of autonomy starts to develop. I'm realizing that you and I, as parent and child, are two different people, actually. When they're babies, they don't really realize that. They just think that we're all one unit because they have to be, right? Because they need to get their needs met. But as they start to grow and develop into toddlerhood, they start to realize, wait a second, we're not actually one being, we're two beings. And turns out I have my own thoughts and feelings, and I have my own desires and things that I want to do. And I think I might want to go like at this right now. And so I'm going to go explore it. And if they have trust in that relationship with their caregiver, then they might venture out and they may go explore it and look at it. And then they come back and they touch base with you, right? They use the parent as what's called a secure base, where they can come back to you for comfort and nurturance and that sense of safety. And they do those check-ins where they go out and they come back in, and they go out and they come back in, and they go out and they come back in. But if I don't have trust in the relationship with my parent, if I don't feel like I can trust them to meet my needs or be a source of comfort and nurturing for me, then I might develop a sense of shame or doubt in myself and my abilities when I reach toddlerhood. I might be a little bit more nervous and apprehensive about going out because I'm not sure about this relationship right here. And so that makes the world out here even more scary, because what is that going to be looking like if I'm having a hard time in this area where I'm supposed to feel safe and secure? And so I don't have time today to go through and describe all of the different stages of psychosocial development. But if this is something that you're interested in, I highly encourage you to go out and take a look at this. But essentially, we have a stage of development for all of the years that we're going to progress through our lifespan. So stage 1, trust versus mistrust, starts in infancy. And then that last stage, the 8th stage, where we're looking at integrity versus despair, is talking about end of life type trials that we're going to be facing. So this is going to cover our whole lifespan, not just childhood development. This is the psychosocial development of us as human beings. And what happens in this first stage is going to have a major impact on all the rest of the stages that we are going to go through. Because at the heart of all of these is that sense of trust versus mistrust, because not only does that have an impact on our relationships with other people, it's also going to have an impact on the relationship that I have with myself as well. So what do we do when we have those periods of misattunement with our children? Because like I said, it's going to happen, right? We are not going to be perfect parents. We are going to have times where we are misattuned to our children. Luckily, we only have to be attuned about 30% of the time. More is ideal, but bare minimum, 30% of the time we need to be attuned to our children for them to be able to develop that healthy emotional health and the secure attachment. But what happens with the other 70% of the time? What happens is we need to make sure that we have what's called repair moments. So like I said, it's not possible to be 100% attuned to your child. I know all of this. I talk about this kind of stuff at conferences all the time. I do parent coaching. I train professionals on this. And my kids will tell you, I am not 100% attuned. My youngest likes to tell me all the time, you're not doing the things that you tell other parents to do. Because I'm a human being. We can't meet our children's needs 100% of the time. We also have our own needs. We also have our own moments where we're having our own struggles. And so we're not going to be 100% attuned. But when those misattunements happen, because they will, repair moments are what help to reconnect us. So what we want to try to do is repair as soon as possible after a rupture. That means that I'm recognizing that in this moment, misattunement happened, or a rupture in that relationship happened, where we went from having this attachment to now we're disconnected. So we want to reconnect with our child, restore that emotional connection that feels safe and soothing to the child. Sometimes it's going to be immediately, where we see that, oh, I really wish that I had not said that, or I had not done that. I am so sorry. Let's reconnect. Sometimes it's going to look like I need to take a break and I need to go attend to my needs first, get myself in a place where I am calm and where I'm able to be more receptive to this interaction with you. So I need to go attend to myself first, and then later I'm going to come back and have that repair. So repairs can happen in the moment immediately, or repair moments can happen later that day or later that night. But it's important to have that connection happen again. We want that emotional connection to come back and for our child to feel safe and soothed with us. We want to express empathy, warmth, acceptance, maybe some playfulness, and some positive physical contact. We know that we're going to have to use our parental attunement capabilities to be insightful and know what our child needs in that moment. Every moment that we have isn't going to be the place for playfulness, but sometimes a repair moment can look like incorporating some playfulness with them. Sometimes our children are not going to be in a place where they want to be touched by you. If they just got their feelings hurt or they got physically hurt, they may not want to have physical contact from you. And that's okay. So we have to be using that parental attunement to be able to think about, what does my child need in this unique moment to make that emotional connection come back into place? How am I going to help them work through this? And it requires of us to be able to recognize that sometimes we do make mistakes and we are going to have that misattunement. And sometimes we are going to say or do things that are going to hurt our children. And we apologize and make that repair with them. So the next thing that I want to do before we end for today is to be able to leave you with some tools for increasing parental attunement and setting that foundation for emotional health in children. I'm going to go through all of the stages of childhood development because I don't think that it's ever too late to improve attunement with your children. They will always benefit from your efforts to understand their experience and meet their needs regardless of their age. So the first one that I want to talk about is, how do we build trust during infancy, that first stage of our psychosocial development. We want to provide our children with responsive care, right? We want to be able to recognize what their needs are and be responsive to them in a timely manner. We also want to be consistent with our children. That's really important. Children need consistency to be able to feel safe and secure. When they know what to expect from us, that feels safe. So consistency is really important. We want to have those nurturing interactions. We want to try to recognize and meet their needs in a timely manner. We also want presence. So what does that look like for infancy? It means that we are giving our child our undivided attention and trying to remove other thoughts from our minds. We want to be present. And I know that it's not possible to be constantly focused on your child, but you should try to set aside several times each day to try to establish that one-on-one time where you're not engaged in any other activity. You're going to want to look for times when it is appropriate for your baby, when they are awake, active, and alert. Things that you're very familiar with being in the infant massage world, right? So we're going to be looking for that same state that we're looking for when we're doing infant massage. We're going to be looking for that same thing when we are trying to have that purposeful one-on-one time with our children. Put your phone down, right? So we don't need to have any distractions. Turn the TV off. If we can, try and set aside some time where it's not being shared with siblings. So that way we can be fully present with our child. Hold them so that way they're facing you and you guys can have that eye gaze looking at each other and being able to read each other's nonverbal cues, look at each other's faces, all of that. We also want to have those serve and return interactions, following the baby's lead, and be able to have healthy and appropriate physical touch with our children. So when we are looking at what we want to do during toddlerhood, it's going to look very similar to what we're doing with our children as babies. We're still going to provide them with responsive care. We're still going to provide them with a sense of consistency. We're still going to have those nurturing interactions with them. We still want to recognize and meet their needs in a timely manner. And we want to have presence and connection. Now that they're getting older, more of this time can be spent in play, which is also one of the innate needs that's identified by Attachment Parenting International. We can take time in the day to play with your child and be fully present during that time. It could be for just a few minutes, like 5 to 10 minutes at a time. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you are carving out an hour or two to play with your child. It could just be little bursts of time throughout the day where you're taking that time to be intentionally present and play with your child, or be just present with them. You'll find that if you take the time to connect with your child before you ask something of them, that they're going to often have an easier time transitioning from a new activity to a new activity, or being able to accomplish a task. When you are connected, you're going to be in tune what they might be thinking and feeling, and you can be able to help them process through any feelings that may come up when you're having to make transitions or ask them to participate in something that they might not want to do, like brushing their teeth or taking a bath or something like that. That's going to help you to be more attuned to them and get you in that place where you're thinking about, what is my child's point of view right now? So what do we want to do when we are building trust during early childhood? Again, responsive care, consistency, nurturing interactions, recognizing and meeting their needs in a timely manner. Oftentimes, as our children start to get older, our expectations grow, and often that leads to less patience with them and less parental attunement, because we're focused on what we need from them, and with their greater abilities comes greater expectations, which they can't always meet in the way that we would like them to. So during this time, it's important that we continue to provide them with all of these things that they've been receiving since they were infants. What it looks like might be a little bit different, but it doesn't make them any less important. The other thing that we're going to introduce here is that we want to model trust. So we take the lead by showing them what it means to be trustworthy. We follow through on the things that we say to them. We don't make promises that we can't keep. We listen to them, and we protect and attend to their emotional well-being just as much as we do to their physical well-being. We don't shame them. We give them the space to express themselves without repercussion and help them work through whatever it is that they are experiencing. So next, let's look at, what do we do during middle childhood and adolescence? Again, we are going to be continuing a lot of those things that we started building during infancy, right? Our middle childhood years and our adolescent years, we still need our parents to be responsive to us. We still need them to be consistent. We still need the nurturing interactions. We still need to recognize and meet their needs in a timely manner. We still need to make sure that we have presence and connection. With the nurturing interactions, what's really important is that we start to get more triggered as they start to get a little bit older. And so we need to make sure that in those nurturing interactions that we're regulating our own emotions. And when we're talking about presence and connection, we need to make sure that we're listening to them and that we are a safe space for them. They need to feel like they can come to us and talk to us and be supported by us, and that we're going to listen to them, see things from their point of view. Again, that parental attunement is being able to see things from their point of view. That's going to be really important. We want to follow their lead. We want to have healthy and appropriate physical touch. And modeling trust starts to evolve at this stage, right? So we show them what it looks like to be a trustworthy person. We don't talk about them. We protect their privacy. We demonstrate to them that we can be relied upon. We have patience. We allow them to make decisions, even if they're going to make the wrong one. We trust that they can handle things. We give them that responsibility, and we don't do everything for them, and we don't chastise them for their choices. We allow them with, some parameters to be able to make choices that are going to allow them to grow and learn. So before we wrap up for today, I just wanted to do a review about what we talked about in regards to parental attunement. So parental attunement is communicating understanding. We're meeting the child's needs. We're building trust. We're contributing to that secure attachment relationship. It's not required 100% of the time, so no pressure. It helps to develop the social emotional skills that our children need to develop. We are communicating safety and security, and we're contributing to the mental health and well-being of our children. So that's all that I have for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I wanted to make sure I left some time to see if anybody had any questions.
Thank you so much, Victoria.
Yeah.
I feel like I learned some tidbits that I can take back to my own children and use them. They're not infants anymore. So I really liked that you went through all of the stages of childhood and, adolescence as well. So thank you for that. I know a couple people might have some questions, so we will give it a few moments.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and take down your presentation.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you.
The last slide.
Oh, last slide. Which slide was it? This one. Here we go. This is how you can get a hold of her. She's amazing. Go to her website. As you can see, she does parenting coaching, parenting classes, baby wearing consultations, webinars, training, speaking engagements.
I do a lot of different things.
Yeah. You're a master of all.
If anybody wants to get in touch, or if you have any questions, I know sometimes it's a lot of information to process. And so you can contact me, just email me if you have any questions after the fact as well. I'm always happy to engage with people. I also wanted to just take a quick moment and say that if you like what you heard today, then I would encourage you guys to head over to the virtual booths that you guys have,
Expo,
and
Expo
check out Nurturings or Attachment Parenting International. So they're a really great nonprofit organization, and they have a ton of information on this topic and so much more. And they're a really great resource if you're interested in learning more about how you can bring information like this to your own clients. We also have the Attached at the Heart parenting program training, where you can be able to add immense value to the services that you already provide. So just, if you are interested, go take a look there. And then if you have any questions for me or you want to connect with me, you are more than welcome to. So
perfect. Well, thank you so much. Next up, we have Appa with Nurturing Moments. So that will begin in about 7 minutes. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, everybody, for joining.